Welcome to Creative Generations podcast. Today I talked with Simeon Den. Simeon has been everything from a dancer, choreographer, teacher, commercial photographer, mindfulness guru, meditation practitioner, and an author. His first book, Eight Meditations on Urban Life, came out in 2005, and we talk a lot about that. He has a new book coming out, hopefully this April, called Meditations from Desert Life. If you enjoy this episode, please follow us on Instagram and YouTube and visit creativegenerations-dance.com. Simeon Den, welcome to the Creative Generations podcast, or welcome back. You were already interviewed by Derek once. But as we were just talking before, I feel so happy that you're here with me. I feel honored. You are such a force in not only the dance community, but the arts community, mindfulness practitioners and people practicing mindfulness. I don't know you personally, but I feel like I do because I've heard so much about you, and I've looked into your background, and yeah, I'm just thrilled to talk to you today. You have a new book coming out,
Mhm.
and it's kind of a second part or a follow-up to your first book. Is that a fair
Yeah,
assessment?
yeah, the sequel.
Sequel. Yeah, so your first book, which was Eight Meditations on Urban Life, was published in 2005. And I thought it'd be nice if you don't mind just kind of talking about that book a little bit because, as you mentioned to me, it's very poignant to Creative Generations in our program because at that time, the time you were reflecting on in that book was the same time period, the same age as a lot of our mentees, and a lot of the same things they're going through, starting out a career, career transitions. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of delving into that book a little bit and how you came to write that.
Sure. So, Eight Meditations on Urban Life. To cover it, I'm standing in the middle of Times Square in a white linen suit. And during that year and a half, I was teaching around the country, and I would take pictures in front of iconic places to identify a city. Um, uh, and in the white suit and barefoot wherever I went. And so I'm standing there. This has been the days before Photoshop. Well, sort of just before Photoshop. So I literally had to like take my shoes off and stand in front of Times Square with no shoes on, right? So it was that era, and I was it's half, but there are eight meditations, and meditations was meant for really to be a meditation primer. Because I taught that, and I do teach that, and I thought it'd be a good way for people to get introduced to meditating because well, the obvious thing is people go, oh, meditation, come on. You know, and but so the way I taught dance is to trick people into learning. And
Mhm.
so um, so I took the opportunity to do eight entertaining personal essays from that part of my life, the New York in the 70s and early 80s in New York and whenever I traveled. And then the other half of the book references the first half, the stories of the first half, without being uh, too obvious. It's not like, okay, this story is about I love to eat chocolate, and so like the referencing one is going to be
Yeah.
today we're going to meditate on
German chocolate cake.
right, how to like keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
So they're like easy, they're hard lessons, easily learned, I think. And I've been working on my other book, which is the sequel, but in I'm about to publish, and I thought I should before I bring this out, identify the first book as a meditation manual. And because we started this too, we started up Creative Generations. One, because of the stories, the narratives are all from that time that your early, um, well, that time as the formative years, like
Mhm.
before we became professionals, and a little bit about into it, but it it was it was like, hey kids, I was young too. I was young once. I had hair and and but the concerns are true, and across the board, I don't think that basically our stories are the same. You know, our how we wonders how we first got interested in dance, or how you started to dance, how you felt about dancing, and then moving on to the next level. And I didn't have that. I didn't begin at dancing until I was 22.
Mm.
So I didn't experience that, but I can imagine because I taught later on. I had a school for about
Yeah.
17 years, and I taught, you know, and so I get it. I get it that we this is steps, and I think in part because of my um I believe that elders should be revered. In the Asian culture, my culture, you know, you elevate them, you take care of them, and I think what's happened is obviously we don't have that some kind in America. We don't have that kind of concern. You know we should be looked at as walking books of knowledge, which is what we're trying to do here, right? We're trying to like impart knowledge, and I think if anything. Um, Part of the legacy, our legacy, is to do that. You know, don't just disappear with all that information. Like I would love to, if my mother was still around, you know,
Yeah.
I would ask her the pertinent questions
Yes.
that she went through, and she would become like a girlfriend. Um, but yeah, so that all of that value, you know, that worth of knowledge just goes boop. And unless they write a book or they leave like a podcast, you know, the for people to reference. I think essentially what we're doing is a service, and we're doing it for our own tribe, and it guarantees the continuation of our tribe.
Where do you, I mean, this might be a question that you've heard a thousand times and you've answered a thousand times, but where did your focus on mindfulness and your, yoga chi practice and all that, where does that come from? Is that something that you was instilled in you as a young person and you've just built upon it on your own practice? Or was it something that you sought out after a life event? Or how did this become such a big part of your life?
I had a friend who was in SRF, Self-Realization Fellowship, and the guru is Paramahansa Yogananda. And do you know Alonzo King?
I don't know him personally, but I know.
Oh, yeah, Alonzo and I are tight friends. So from like before time, and he and another friend, we were in Honolulu. He happened to be there in the ballet company there about circa 1969, 70, something like that. And he was a devotee. I think his parents were also of Self-Realization Fellowship. So by example, I thought I could try that, you know, the meditating, and I did. And I found it wasn't for me for various reasons. But when I decided to leave, my mentor told me, you know what, it's harder to be more challenging to be spiritual in the world because and living a life because when you join the monastery, which is what I was going to do, you cloistered and you just don't you're protected and you meditate all day, you know. And when you have a life, you have to do that as well as manage a life, a family, blah 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 blah. And I took that as a good excuse. So and you know what happened was I realized the power of meditating. I remember the power of 2,000 people sitting in a big room meditating, and it's like, can you imagine meditating on the same thing?
Mm.
And I opened the hotel room doors, and I went, ooh, this. So I had a sense of that. I had the visceral a sense of that, but I didn't think I wanted to be solely spiritual. And it didn't have to me. I didn't want to feel. I was raised a Catholic, so I had that in me, and I wanted meditation to be more than just that.
Yeah.
So I went to explore, and and what I had learned at SRF actually, when I was sneaking away and learning different other yogic practices and Buddhism, um, the monk said to me, when you're ready, the teacher will come, the right teacher will come, and yeah,
Did that happen for you? Did you get the right?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Ultimately, in regard to quantum physics and spirituality and science, the right teacher is me, and the right teacher is you. And the right teacher is everybody, because our perception is of God is not like a person, but God is something we really probably can't even imagine yet, because we're not evolved. Our brains aren't evolved yet to receive that and interpret it.
Yeah.
So the idea that we are God just means like everything is God. So if you think the universe, um, uh, it's abstract, but in terms of um, questions of existentialism, why I'm here, it works for me, that construct.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I have one more question before we talk about your new book. And I was just curious again in reading up on you and watching videos of you and just kind of learning more about you. You've done so much, and you've done so much so well. And I'm not just trying to um, feed you compliments, even though you deserve them. Um, where do you think you get this intense drive to continue to push and exceed and excel in all these different fields of life? I mean, it's crazy, Simeon, what you've done. And I see it talking to you now that you still have this, you know, you're raring to go. And I just wonder if you've always had that, and if that's something that you feel like has been an asset to you and has been something that you've really stuck with, and that is something that you have to practice, or something that you have to dig out of the basement every once in a while, or if it's always there, if it's always something churning.
I think it's always there because I haven't identified it as one thing. But yes, I've been lucky, and part of my uh not journey, but part of the package is um sharing it, whatever gifts I can make use of to share it. And part of that has to do with that mentoring too, handing that stuff down. Um I have been very, very lucky, and I was always very up. I grew up in Hawaii. Hard to be like sad when you,
Yeah.
when you grew up in Hawaii. And so very happy-go-lucky, but I couldn't wait to go away to school. So I went away to school on the East Coast, at UMass. And it was the ticket. I had to get away from that nest. And through another lesson, I learned never to be homesick about any place, because of another mentor who told me to bloom where you are planted. So kind of, this is like 1968,
Yeah.
like a hippie meme.
Yeah.
And so I've done that. So wherever I went, I would like find my tribe, build a community, um, and have a group of like-minded people, support group.
Mhm.
And I've done that everywhere I went. I did that not in not I almost say habitually, because I did it everywhere rather than instinctively, but I did it everywhere I went. And in 1979, I was diagnosed with HIV. So it was
Mm.
like just the beginning of all that.
Yeah.
And when it happened, I met with a friend, and oh, my whole face was like covered with shingles.
Mm.
And I was like, what is that? And it started by, we were sitting on the beach and somebody saw this guy says to me, what is that little pus on your head? And I'm like, what? And I felt it, and it was like a little pus. And the next couple of days I was covered with it.
Mm.
And I went to a holistic person and to treat it. But I also called a friend of mine she's a psychotherapist, but she came from polarity. So she did some polarity balance on me, and it was gone, in a week and a half. And this is like what I was. It was diagnosed as shingles that would take about 2 or 3 months to completely go away. And if you touch it, it's going to be painful. But it was gone in 10 days to a week, 2 weeks, yeah. And so I thought, oh, there's something to this.
Yeah.
So just to reinforce what I already um, intuited was right for me. Um, and from there, I started to do, well, I found out about HIV. And when everyone was dying around me, um, the dying part isn't, sometimes it's the good part.
Mm.
because if you're wasting away, I mean, think of it, and a lot of us were dancers, you're wasting away, you start to get skin and bone, and then that scene is just so horrible.
Yeah.
Imagining yourself wasting, literally wasting away.
Yeah.
So the experience that I've had is for a lot of my friends who passed away, it was like, safe trip, hallelujah, man, you out of pain. So it made me aware of things that I should have learned 40, 50 years from then about death, about dying, people getting sick. Old people like me, we see more of it. More people are like, you look in your address book and go, ooh, that's gone. Or Facebook, and they're
Yeah.
like, they've been archived. And so I did come to a realization at one point, and I'll share this with you, but I hardly ever talk about it. Um, well, now everybody else knows. I believe that I was given a chance not to wither away and die because I have a purpose. And I was actually doing my purpose, which is teaching
Yeah.
anyway. But it was more focused, like what I want to teach are I told you, like, the way my technique of teaching is to trick people into learning how to dance.
Yeah.
So I'll take these little girls and go, step together, and the other way, step together, right? And then I'll say, that's what's called a chasse. Let's do it faster.
Yeah.
Uh, I do that with the beginning adults too, but they don't know it. So in meditation, I sort of do the same thing, but I know that I had to be an example. The way Alonso was to me when I first got introduced to SRF, you cannot try to teach something if you don't feel it authentic, and you don't live it. That's not you. So, for instance, right now in spiritualism, a lot of I practice some energy techniques, energy healing techniques, and what's popular now is the idea of the principles of quantum physics and
Hmm.
how they overlap with science and religion. This is very, until even about 2 or 3 years ago, maybe even last month for some people, the idea of quantum physics is very woo woo. That's hippie talk
Yeah.
and frowned upon. And anyway, so now people who are like in the know, are like making the connections and having a fuller reality of the universe. It's like the world is flat, and then you sail to it. It's not flat. Yeah, it's not flat. So similarly, right now we're just our brains are keeping up with our evolution, and maybe 5 years from now, 10 years from now, everyone's going to be how the smaller group of people are thinking. My mentor is so I'm 75, so he's like 42 or something like that, He's a surgeon he graduated from Harvard.
Mm.
And then when he was finished, before he wanted to do get a PhD, his girlfriend, who was very hippie-ish, made him study Reiki. So he did. He got into it and he became a Reiki master. And then he got interested in polarity. And then he went back to Harvard and he wrote his dissertation on mindfulness. Um, and so how I met him was I had back surgery about 3 years ago, and he was part of my therapy because he runs a clinic for chronic pain, meditation for chronic pain.
Mm.
And so there aren't that many people there. Most people are like, give me the pill,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is cool. You can do both.
Yeah.
The side thing about meditation were other things that happen because um, when you do silent meditation,
Hmm.
they do breathing. Everybody says when you distress or you fall down or something, people say breathe because at least everybody knows universally that if you breathe, it's going to slow down. But uh, the foundation of all of that comes from ancient healing techniques. They didn't have doctors or pills,
Yeah.
3,000 years ago. And so what's coming back is, and it's still valuable,
Yeah.
that just because it happened, you learn Tai Chi, you know, like 3,000, 4,000 years ago, that doesn't mean that it doesn't work. Still work. So same with my book. I was thinking, okay, I wrote that 20 years ago, and I thought, I have a lot of books that I keep, from 30, 40 years ago.
That's
So
true.
it's still valuable. And I think that I should use that opportunity to trick people into learning again,
Yeah. Well,
meditation.
okay, so you
By
said
example,
yeah, the first book you said was like a almost like a guide to beginner's meditation. Um, so is the second book, is that a continuation of that, or is it next level, or is it just a completely different animal altogether?
it's both, but actually, the first book is everything
Hmm.
because you don't go like meditation silence 101, or I don't, meditation 2 breathing, meditation 3 journaling, because what I gave out was if you took those tools you can use those, so they function and they're good enough.
Yeah.
As you get more into it, the same way with dance, similarly, like dance, it's like, okay, you learn the chasse, and now you want to learn how to do a tour, you know. So you're ready for it. So you ask, you see it and you go, oh, I want to try that. So
Yeah.
kind of similarly in everything else that we learn, and in meditation in this case, I think you start to do it and you realize, oh, that's what they're talking about. Okay. And then you realize what's happening is uh, on the science wise, on the physical science wise, um, when you breathe, when you take a meditation practice, and it's as simple as breathe in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. Yeah. Whatever your number system is. But if you do that, and they say if you do that 20 minutes a day, twice 20 minutes a day, then you will be surprised how close you get to God, or realizing that you are, you know. And and it's hard to be present like that for like 20 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
So you break it down and you build it up. But once you build it up, you go like, I want more, I want more, But what happens all along the way is that technique stimulates hormones and growth, and triggers growth in your brain, you know. So it builds these ridges, these pathways, where energy passage through, and communicates with your body. And I think it makes you smarter, but literally it just makes you have more brains.
Yeah.
And the thing about a lot of the brain part, science is they're finding out that what they thought was science and was it is not. That there's a particular first, yeah, there's a lot of buzz, but the pineal gland, and that's supposed to be the new, um, that's where your brain is, that's where God is, that's where everything is. And this other one that they thought just covered the brain as as a protection, but in fact, it's the only one of the brain uh, organs that goes all the way down your spine. And
Hmm.
so now these are researchers from Harvard, Stanford, and they've been going on for a couple of years, several years, like almost a decade, over a decade, and they're only beginning to release some of this information now that they have. Um, they're more the studies are more solid and more complete, and therefore more acceptable to the professional world.
Wow. I mean, yeah, it seems, like you mentioned, Tai Chi being thousands of years old and all these mindfulness meditation practices being so old and they're still relevant. Well, yeah, because they worked for thousands of years, and this,
Exactly.
modern technology is so new. I think because it's at the forefront, maybe people might poo-poo the past. But I think you're right that if we can kind of meld the two together, then we're onto something.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, I wanted to ask about with your new book, the Meditations from Desert Life. You mentioned that it kind of reflects on the time period of like 1990 to 2020, whereas the first book was like late 70s, early 80s. And
The 60s to the 80s, yeah.
yeah, so a ton of life events happened for you in that time. You were in Hawaii for a while. You went to LA, became a photographer. You met your husband. You now live in Cathedral City in this beautiful desert. And I wondered, you had a video about your first book where you called yourself an urbanite, and you said, and I just wanted to write this down. You said that the bucolic life is for vacations, daydreams, rejuvenations, retirement, and your eventual internment. And I just wondered if you still feel that way now that you are, living this life, and how things have changed, and if you address that in the book, and if it kind of what you're feeling on that ideology is now.
Yeah. Well, surely at the time, even it was a little bit of tongue in cheek. But where are you from originally?
I'm from South Carolina.
Yeah. So you're like a country boy. So
Yes.
just like I'm from Hawaii, essentially. So it's like But you remember being in the big city, and I had only lived after I left college. I had only lived in New York and LA. So my sense of the what the world was a city. It was an urban environment.
Yeah.
Um, and so New Yorkers, I after the first year I was there, I was like, I'm a New Yorker. Yes, I'm a New Yorker, And when you identify, it's like, yeah, all that stuff I was watching on TV when I was a kid,
Hmm.
and it was about New York and New York characters. I'm a New Yorker now, and there's that false pride. But I think people in cities think that they're better than people in South Carolina, unless you're from the city in South
Yeah.
Carolina.
There are too many big cities in
But you
South.
know what I mean? Like people have they have this uh, air of like sophistication that they equate with being better than everybody else. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think when you go to New York, when you first go, you feel like you have to earn the right to call yourself a New Yorker. Certainly, New Yorkers will let you know if you are or not. You're just like, get off, you
It's
know.
a tough place. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a wonderful feeling when you feel at home in the city. And so I was always, because of so much of my early success was in New York and living a city life, coming from where I came from. Um, I did kind of feel that, that I'm an urbanite. That's what we do. And I made comments. I did make a comment in the book about um, other urbanites, and there's an upside and a downside to that. But yeah, so a lot of it was tongue in cheek because certainly I don't believe that it's just a place to die, you know. That the bucolic place is just a place to
Yeah.
die. I've been in this bucolic place for like 14 years. But so that half of my life was recorded, accounted for, and then this part from the desert. I've been living here. I never thought I would be end up in the desert, especially, and maybe I won't. But I know coming from Hawaii, especially where I'm used to water
Mm.
um, around me all the time, this is around the opposite, you
Yeah.
know. And but I've learned a lot from being here, and I've got into the arts community. And so my 8 meditations on desert, I can't remember if I'm gonna decide. I can't decide if it's gonna be from desert life or just desert meditations, or But essentially, it's from um, a married life, being here in the city, and we live in a historic home. Agnes Pelton, she's a historic painter. The best way the most convenient way I can explain her to people is she was celebrated posthumously, which is like she lived in this house, built
Mhm.
this house in 1938, and she's only recently been acknowledged, recently in the last 4 or 5 years. She had a show, retrospective at the Whitney, and then she finished here in Palm Springs Museum, and she's being considered in the art world as equal or better to Georgia O'Keeffe.
Mm.
And the same generation women in that time painting similar things, and then they never really met. I think, but there was one point where Agnes says about Georgia that Georgia paints the beauty, the physical beauty of these flowers, but she paints the spirit. but she tries to capture the spirit of it. So
Mm.
throughout her life, her intention was to have learn the technique of capturing light. You know, I mean, if we think about it as dancers, if we're choreographing something, if we're trying to like express light,
Yeah.
you know, we can do it. I would find a way to do it. But so you see, for her, it was that, and she belonged to a very eclectic group of people, which I tried to. Uh, there's a season here, from like March through June or April or something. People come and they vacation and they sell paintings and blah blah blah. So this house was the first desert art center where they sold paintings of her friends who came to visit. Their friends were like, you know, intellectuals, musicians, other artists, um, and so they would come and gather. So I've tried to sort of like honor that and do the same thing with the house while we're here.
Yeah.
So I have a writing group, I have a meditation group. I teach yoga here, and I know I'm going off track, but it's pertinent.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't feel her ghost here, but how would one not feel the specialness of it, you know? Um, the so this is the most ugly part. Yeah. So the pool is that way.
Okay.
Yeah. And then this is my meditation garden.
Oh, wow.
Uh, and then this is um let's see. So we have a second story. It's an Airbnb. And my husband Peter taught himself how to do mosaics.
Oh.
We have a Latina friend in LA, and her house is a house has uh, mosaics all over. She's done. She's a little girl, and her whole kitchen is that way in her bathroom. And I remember when she was showing it to us, Peter said, "I just saw this light in his eye." And the next day, he was cracking plates out back. He started to do,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah.
So beautiful. Wow.
Um, that's only a little bit, a part of it, and it goes all the way around. And then we've had this guy with us for a while, 20 years.
Oh,
And blah, blah, blah. So this is the meditation garden. So what I did was, remember I told you bloom where you're planted?
yes.
That guy, hippie guy told me that. Um, I think I took it to heart. And wherever I went, I tried to make it a bloom where you're planted place.
Yeah.
Um, Depending where you want to be planted, right?
Do you ever feel, or do you think that you'll ever be pulled back into a big city, or do you ever get the itch to go back and, live that life again?
Yeah, actually, for various reasons, all of last year I was in LA.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, and I lived right by UCLA. My sister and her husband are both attorneys, so
You
they
went to
got a nice
UCLA, right?
house. But
Did you graduate from UCLA?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I went back to get to that was an interesting story too, but leave it for later. I was 55 when I went back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I had to be there for 2 years, and I'm going to say a little bit about it because I think it needs to be said. When I went to UCLA, I was in the dance and theater department, which became the cultural studies department, and I was studying culture and arts more. But the teachers there were nice; they were great. But some of them were just academics, not just academics, but they weren't academics and dancers.
Yeah.
No, and they held it. I'm only saying this because in defense because they held it against us. I mean, me who had my career, what I did, they didn't celebrate it, and I didn't want them to, but they almost looked down on the fact that I was not academic. You
Yeah.
know, there was a course called New Genre,
Mhm.
and great class, just and it really is stuff you want to do that's nobody's done before. Just
Yeah.
the stuff you want to do with dance that you
Right.
should try out. and let's make popping a dance thing, you
Yeah.
know. Um, but there, I was very disappointed that I had suspected that that could be the case in general. That the people who go and teach stuff and have never had a career doing that, a professional one, that's lacking. I wouldn't want to study with that person.
Yeah,
Um,
I could see there could be a disconnect there. There could be
yeah,
a lack of empathy, sympathy, shared experience between people.
yeah. In that same way, what we're trying to do with us, we're trying to we're not trying to get people to bypass anything. We want to have them experience everything they can and take heart. Just you don't have to be burdened by stuff because there are burdens, but
Hmm.
do what you can, and we're all here to support them.
Yeah. When is this book going to come out? When can we get our hands on it?
I know. I'm planning to go back to Hawaii in April. When I go back, the last time I did a one-man show, I think I'm going to do it as a time to promote the book. So I'd say about April. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait. I'm going to get your first book and I'm sure, just run through it. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I can't thank you enough for talking to me today. And I hope that when the book comes out, we have a big launch party,
Yeah.
get all the CG fans together. Yeah, Simeon, thank you so much. And I look forward to talking to you again and working with you and all the things.
Thank you so much too. You know, you're a teacher. You're my teacher.
Oh,
Because when you're ready, a teacher will come.
well, thank you, sir. Thank you for tuning into the Creative Generations podcast. I could listen to Simeon talk for hours. He is so wise, is so knowledgeable, has lived so many lives. Um, I, for one, am looking forward to this new book coming out in April called Meditations from Desert Life. Also, please check out 8 Meditations on Urban Life by Simeon Den and check out his website at simeondenwellness.com. If you like this episode, please follow us on YouTube and Instagram and check out our website, creativegenerations-dance.com.